Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Megan, and in today's video we will be sewing up this super cute dress. So this is a 3 to 6 month size dress. It has an open back, so you can see that there's 2 plastic snaps. I normally do 3, but this is such a super tiny size that I decided to just stick with 2 snaps. And it also has a really cute pleated skirt. And then I do not have a cover stitch, so I show you guys how to make a nice clean edge like that using your serger and sewing machine. So this pattern is serger optional. You don't have to use a serger, but I highly recommend that you use both a serger and a sewing machine. So I highly recommend that you use both of those. I used a combination of my iron and also my heat press to press down all this fabric because you're going to want to kind of make it nice and flat as possible so it'll look nice and crisp for your customer. And I also use some interfacing, especially when it comes to this back and the snaps. You know, you don't want to have a lot of fraying and stuff going on. And I also use plain quilting cotton fabric, which I believe I got this fabric from either Hobby Lobby or Joann's, but I'm thinking I got it from Hobby Lobby. So it's a cute everyday dress. It's always great too as well for spring or summer or a wedding dress, a party, well, not like a wedding dress, but a dress to wear at a wedding or some sort of party. A great birthday dress as well. I market my dresses for that too. So yeah, it's super beginner friendly. You will want to have some sort of stabilizer for the back. I use SF101 interfacing, also known as Shape Flex, which I got from Joann's. And then I got these plastic snaps from Etsy as well. Everything that I use, I'll put a link down below as to where I get it from. And then I also show you how to use a combination of a hand press and a cam snap press to kind of compare and contrast with you guys the difference, but there isn't really much difference. So yeah, this is the dress. Again, turned out really cute. I kind of go through with you the different markings that you have to do for the pattern and kind of what the different symbols and stuff mean on the pattern pieces as well. And again, you will want to also use a heat press and an iron. I use a combination of both. So yeah, super cute dress. And I also used a lot of magic clips. Especially when it comes to all the different areas for sewing this dress and making sure your edges meet up nice and crisp. I use a ton of magic clips, so I highly recommend that you use those for this project. So yeah, let's get on with the tutorial, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, let's just get along with the tutorial. Okay, so let's go over the pattern pieces. So first step is you want to cut out your pattern. So here is the skirt, the bodice, the back bodice, and the front bodice. So I usually organize my patterns by with manila envelopes. So for example, this is a 3 to 6 month dress. This is what the customer ordered. And I also wrote dress on it. So if I'm ever filtering through my manila envelopes, then I can see, okay, I have the dress cut out. So that's kind of my tip if you do a bunch of these. And as you can see, there's lots of different markings. So here there's kind of some arrows, and then this is on the fold, so I'll kind of explain what all that means in a moment. But this is the first step to cutting out your dress. Okay, so I have all my pattern pieces cut out here, so let's start with the skirt panel. So as I mentioned before, you want the pattern to be going like this way, so that luckily this is a non-directional print, so it doesn't really matter. But just keep that in mind when you're cutting out your pieces. So as I mentioned before, there are little arrows here, and you probably are wondering what the heck those are for. So these arrows are for when you do your pleats. You'll want to connect up the arrows, but when it comes to cutting out your skirt, you're gonna, after you cut out all 6 pieces, so you need 6 of these pieces, and once you're done cutting those out, you will want to transfer over these markings because they're very important. So you go here, line it up with the pattern, and then just make little tick marks with a pen, or you can use a piece of chalk or something like that, a chalk pen, I guess they're called. I don't have one of those. but you can definitely transfer over those markings because those are very important. Now we have the back bodice. So this is for where the snaps are going to go, so the back is going to be open. So for this, you want the grain to be going the same way. So, you know, like I said, I'm using non-directional print, so that doesn't really matter. And also use 1/4 inch seam allowance. For me, I have a serger, so it automatically does, I think it's about 1/4 inch seam allowance. So yeah, so as you can see, it says you need 2 for the main and 2 for the lining. So for this, you're gonna wanna have 2 going that way, and then flip your piece over. This is called mirroring, and then cut out 2 pieces of that. As you can see, I still have to iron down my pieces, but I'll do that momentarily. So like I said, you'll need 2 pieces that are mirrored and 2 pieces that are facing the way that the pattern piece shows. So yeah, that's kind of my tips for that, is to just, I usually fold over my fabric and then cut out 2, so it kind of automatically becomes one mirrored and one is just the regular. So like I said, you're gonna need 2 for the main lining, main fabric, and 2 for the lining fabric. So just keep that in mind. And I believe I also mentioned that I'm using quilting cotton fabric. I just find that this works best. So in addition to the back lining, you're gonna wanna get some additional stabilizer, especially for these snaps. It'll kind of pull on the fabric and it could possibly make the fabric fray. So what I use are these little strips of SF101 interfacing, also known as Shape Flex. You can pick this up at Amazon. It's basically just a thin stabilizer. I find that it works best for my back, and especially with the different buttons and snaps and everything like that. So it has a rough side and then a soft side. So the rough side you're going to want to put against your fabric. So I'll show you as an example. So if I flip this piece over, then I put the rough side towards the back of the fabric. So wrong sides together, so then you're feeling the nice soft side. And the reason why I cut strips out of this is because obviously each dress is different size, so this might be longer or might be shorter. So I just cut out long strips and cut them out as I go. And you'll want to do this for all 4 of your pieces. And again, it'll just help provide extra stabilization for your snaps. So that's what I would recommend. And again, I think the best way to press all your fabrics is a heat press, but there are definitely certain points where you're going to want to use your iron instead, which I'll explain later. So that's the back bodice for the snaps. And then this is the front bodice. So this is the piece, and this is what I have cut out. So as you can see, it looks a little different than the paper here. That's because there's something called place on the fold. What this basically means is that you will fold your fabric when you're cutting it out, and then place the pattern piece on it and cut it out like that. So that's what place on the fold means. Again, keep in mind the direction and also 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you'll need 2 pieces for this, 1 for the main fabric and 1 for the lining fabric. And again, I'll leave a link in the description for the pattern as well. So, like I said, the next step would be to press all, well, first of all, you have to transfer the markings. I haven't done that yet, so I'll do that now. Before I do that, I'm gonna fire up my heat press, and then I'm gonna press all these fabrics. And again, you're gonna wanna cut out the strips for the snaps and put them on the back with the rough side toward the fabric. So just keep that in mind. And again, you can buy this at Joann's. The strips, I just bought a bolt of it because I use my bolt for other things. So I just cut out little strips like that, and it makes it much easier. And again, they're 1-inch strips, nothing too crazy. And yeah, you don't need any wider than that, especially for the bigger sizes, because the snaps are fairly small. So as long as you have enough stabilizer to cover where the snaps are going to be, you don't have to worry about it. So like I said, I'm going to transfer those markings, and I'm going to press my fabrics, and we'll come back together and start sewing. right, so this next part is up to you which ones you want to do first. I usually prefer to start with the skirt, so I'll put the top pieces aside for now. So I'll show you the different markings that I made. So as you can see, they have 4 tick marks there. The other one's kind of in the middle right there. So I made the 4 tick marks, which is where I'm going to fold my fabric, but that's later on for another step. But definitely transferring those markings is important. And I just make little tick marks as a reminder for myself rather than, you know, using a pen all around my fabric. And you can also use a washable away or heat away pen or something like that. I don't exactly know. I got like a purple one from Joann's that I use sometimes, but I usually just like to use a pen because you don't even notice these markings after a while. Okay, so grab your magic clips. I use these for my pinning my fabric and stuff. So grab some of those, and you're gonna grab your first 2 pieces of your skirt, and you're gonna put them right sides together, lining up the straight edge, which is this edge we're focusing on, and then grab your pins and then start clipping all around that edge, and use as many clips as you want. So then now we're going to go to the serger and serge this edge, and then after you do that, you will flip this over, pin the next piece, and do the exact same thing that we did. So you will just put it there, pin that edge, and everything like that. And then once you are done doing serging all of that, you'll have a really long piece, and you will want to connect that piece. So you will just connect the 2 edges of your fabric, put them together just like that, but of course with a long strip. And then that'll kind of connect all the strips, and make sure that the long side should be, the wider side should be at the bottom, and the ones with the tick mark should be at the top, because that indicates that that's the top of your skirt, because you want it to kind of flow out. So that's kind of why it looks like that. And then also another reminder is that you can use the direction of your fabric to kind of remind yourself which goes to the top and which goes to the bottom. But as you can see on this piece, it's pretty apparent that this is the bottom and this is the top. So like I said, serge all of those 6 pieces together, and then once you're done serging that long strip, connect the strips together, and then it'll kind of form one big casing. So let's go to this serger. Alright, so for this next step, we're going to make the pleats. So as I mentioned before, we made these specific markings. We transferred it from the pattern, so this is when it comes in handy. Sorry if the light's too bright. I have the window open, but hopefully it's okay. So you're going to match up this dot or this marking with the marking on the back. It might not match up perfectly, but that's okay. So you're gonna turn your machine on, which you can't even tell. And then I have my setting to 3 out of 6, so kind of a medium in between. So you're gonna place your foot on top of that marking. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna sew a line, I would say about maybe 1.25 inches down. So I'll show you what it looks like after I finish doing this one. And don't forget to back stitch. And then I also have an automatic cutting cutter, so that comes in handy. So this is what the first one looks like. I usually use white for pretty much all my dresses because they're kind of light in color. This you could use black, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. So this is about how far down I go. Again, it doesn't really matter, you know, as long as you make the pleat. So that's one pleat done. Now this next one's kind of tricky. So we have one marking here at the corner, and then we have one here. So what you're gonna wanna do is fold those markings with the fabric being right side together and make sure those darts match. So there's one marking and there's the other one, so that matches. So now you're gonna do the same exact thing, and you're gonna probably go about 1.25 inches down. And I'll show you what that looks like after we finish this one. So don't forget to back stitch where you start and where you end. And I usually go over it a couple times just to make sure that it won't come loose. So here are what the pleats look like so far. So you're gonna do that for all of your markings. So luckily for the edges that you serged, you don't really have to worry about matching up those darts, but when it comes to being in the middle, you definitely have to be pretty precise. So go and do that for all around the skirt, and we'll come back once we're done. Alright, so now this next part is we're back to the serger. So this is what you should have so far. There are all the nice pleats that you did, and you can kind of see how the skirt will flow. So it kind of flows outward. So, gonna grab your, actually you don't need your magnetic or your magic clips. There we go for this. So for this part, we're going to serge all of our raw edges. And now for this, you're gonna have to keep in mind these little pleats that you did, and you're gonna wanna kind of pin those down with your serged edge. So I like to have my pleats facing towards me when I serge. So I usually put the fabric wrong side down, so right side up. And again, making sure that pleat is facing towards you. And take your time with doing this because you want to definitely make sure you tack down all of those pleats. So go from pleat to pleat, and then we'll meet up once we're done. And I'll show you what it looks like. So there's our top all prepped and ready to go. So this is what it looks like when the pleats are all tacked down. They're not coming out, so that's always good. So like I said, this is all prepped now to attach to the main lining. But now we have to handle the bottom of the skirt because we want it to look all nice. and make sure that there's no random threads. So I usually serge all around the bottom, and then I'll show you what we do, because some people have cover stitches, but I don't have that, so this is an alternate way of kind of making your hem look all nice and clean. So like I said, my next step will be to serge this raw edge. And I usually have the fabric facing right side up, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Alright, so now that raw edge is all serged, and I'll show you what we do at my sewing table. Alright, so now you're going to want to grab a bunch of clips. And here's the raw edge that we just serged. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in probably about 1/4 of an inch. So there's a raw edge. And then fold it in again about 1/4 of an inch. So that serged edge will be hidden, and then you're going to clip that. So here's what that looks like, and now you're going to do the same thing all around and making sure that serged edge is hidden. Yeah, so do that step and then we'll meet back up. So now that raw edge is all pinned in, you will want to sew all around this bottom seam at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I would use a longer stitch length as well. So like I mentioned before, you're going to want to stitch down this edge, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I use about a stitch length of 4 for my machine. And I do it right sides up, but it's up to you. But I also want to mention that when you do your fold over, so you fold in the raw edge and then when you fold it over again, I actually usually probably fold it about a 3/8 inch, and then I do 1/4 of an inch seam allowance for when I sew, so that way I will know that all the fabric that I'm sewing down is being sewed. So here's a skirt. Again, it's all prepped and ready to go. So now we're going to start working on the top. All right, so now we're going to work on the top piece. So we're going to grab the front pieces, again, one for lining and one for the main. and you're going to grab one of your back pieces and put the fabrics right sides together. And you're going to match up your edges, specifically the top here, and you're going to pin it, or clip it in my case. So there's one done. Do the same for the other piece. Match it up, clip it. Now you're going to serge both of these edges, and then once you're done doing that, you're going to do the same with the other pieces. Flip it over and clip that. So again, we are just serging the shoulder seam. There we go, my God. So just serge that edge, and then once you do that, we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Alright, so now both pieces should look like this, again with the shoulder seam sewn down. So now what you're going to do is you're going to open it up, and this is what it'll look like. Now you're going to grab your other piece and put the fabrics right side together. And then you are going to pin your pieces, making sure that all sides are aligned. And when I mean pin, I mean clip in this case, because I think pinning's kind of annoying, so if there's any way that I can use my magic clips, I definitely will do that. Okay. I usually pin kind of all around just to make sure that nothing shifts. And especially with these curves, you want to make sure that they're lined up right against each other, because you have little room for error if your fabric shifts. So again, just clip all around, and I will show you where you will need to sew. I would say that this part is the most trickiest, but once you do a bunch of them like I do, it'll become second nature to you, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. So that's about good. All right, so now you will want to sew this. So this curve, do not sew this. So this curve only, this curve, and then in the middle. So that end, go around the circle to the other end. So again, you want to leave the bottoms open, of course, this side open, and these bottoms. So again, this, you want to sew these C's, I'll call them, for the armpits, and that's all you'll want to sew. So let's go to the serger. Alright, so now I'm going to check and make sure that I don't have any holes. So doing the neck part is a place where you'll most likely get holes. Cut that part out. I don't know. So what I like to do is I like to go through the bottom and just using my finger, I like to go all around the edge, especially the corners. That's what you'll most likely end up missing. So I poke my corners pretty good. I actually might go over, so you can see this one, it kind of barely covers a corner, so I'll go over that one. And just again, using your finger, go over it. Feels pretty good. And I usually do this part before I proceed. And I don't know if I showed you, but I just barely did a little clip on the corner, so when you pull it out and you tread it right side out, you should get a nice pokey corner, if that makes any sense. So let me check this corner as well. And you can also like check, flip it over, so there's one side, there's another side. So as you can see, I just barely got the parts for here, so you can kind of see that blue part as the raw edge. Can you see it? It won't focus, but I'm just using my iPhone, so whatever. So I'm gonna go over this corner again at least, just to make sure that's nice and secure. Alright, so here's what we have. So again, this is the neck seam, which we sewed, and we sewed up here, all around there, and then we did the armpits, and then these are going to be left open. So first, I would get your iron started to heat up, so let me just plug that in right now. And this is when you would need your iron and not a heat press. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go through this part, so the top and the front, I mean, and then you're gonna pull out the back. So you're gonna go through this. You're gonna go through here, put your corners in this little area here. Put your fingers, I mean, did I say corners? And then grab a piece of the fabric and pull it out. Don't mind that, that's just my iron. Okay, and then I always check the corner, so if you can see here, there's a little bit of fraying, so I'm actually gonna pull this out, but this side looks good, so I'm gonna pull it back through. And the side where the stripy ones are, that's where I'm going to fix it. So that's why you always want to check your work. And that's also why colors like this kind of make it helpful, so you know which side you have to fix. So again, I'm going to pull it through. And then it was here, so I will fix that right now. All right, that looks much better. So even though I've made a bunch of these dresses, I still make mistakes. So now I'm gonna pull this out again. Grab some fabric, pull it through. Now that's much better. So keep pulling it through. So this is one of the backs. And then poke out the corner as much as you can. And then I use these little scissors. I believe they came with my machines. I have a couple of them, so I think they did. and then you're gonna gently poke that corner. So that looks pretty, a little bit more pokage, not too much. There we go. So that corner's all poked out nice, and now I'm going to flip it and pull out the other side. So again, pulling it through from the front to the back. Now my iron should be almost all warmed up, and you were also working on pulling out your fabric at the same time, so 2 birds with 1 stone. Again, get your poker tool and carefully poke. So that looks good. All of my edges look nice and sewn with no openings, so that should be good to go. Now we're gonna go to the iron, and we are going to press all of this down so it's all nice and flat, because it's kind of big and floppy right now. So let's go over to the iron. Now I have my pressing mat here with my fabric. So again, you're gonna press it all flat. And since it's a 3 to 6 months, it'll look super, super tiny. All right, so now for the next part, you will want to tack down the sides. So this is why we left these sides open. So as you can see, it's open. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold it in half, match up the sides that are right sides together, and get some pins or clips. I don't know why I keep saying pins, so grab your pins and pin that side, and I'll show you a trick to make sure that you're pinning it correctly, because sometimes I would pin it, or I would, yeah, pin it, whatever, I'll just say pin it. Sometimes I would pin it and the shoulder would be all twisted, so again, slowly make your way down. I usually pin the side, the bottoms as well, just to make sure that it's all lined up. Okay, so now I'm gonna flip it out. And as you can see with it pinned, this is what it'll look like. So you wanna have kind of an opening like this, and this is what it'll look like. So there's one side that would be tacked down together, so this is what it'll look like. And then there's the other side. So that's how you know that it isn't twisted. If it was twisted, the shoulder seam would be kind of like that, but since we pinned it the right way, it's not like that. So now what you're gonna do is you are going to serge this edge to attach the sides. And make sure your fabric's out of the way as well. And there should be a curve, that's normal. It shouldn't be a straight line. So just go with the curve. All right. Take out your clips. And now you have one side done. So there's the little hole for the arm. And now you'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll come back together. All right, so now that we have the sides all pinned, or sewn, I don't know why I keep saying pinned. You are going to want to figure out which side you want to be your main, your front piece, and which you want to be your back. So if there's kind of a direction or print that you prefer, definitely consider that with this next step. So I think this is fine. Either way, it looks the same. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping about an inch overlap between both of these, the backs, which is why we also added our stabilizer, just especially for the snaps. This is where the part where you're kind of prepping for the snap. So I pin the top there and do the same for the bottom. So again, making sure that there's about an inch overlap, making sure it also goes the right way. So now I have those pins, so this is what the top was gonna look like. And there's the back. So now what you're gonna wanna do is go to the serger and serge this bottom raw edge to prepare for adding the top to the bottom. So let's go to the serger. Alright, so there's the bottom edge all serged and ready to attach to the bottom. Alright, so now we got the top with the bottom all serged and the skirt with the top all serged. So the skirt, you can kind of see the pleats. It looks super cute. So what you're going to want to do is pull the skirt inside out, so wrong side out. And then here you can kind of see this nice edge that we finished off here. It looks really nice. So again, wrong side out for the skirt. For the top, you can leave it just like it is, so right side out, because you're gonna wanna put right side with right side, so that's what we're doing. And now you're gonna start pinning around these raw edges. And at this point, we're all done with the serger, so if you wanna turn that off, which I'll do now, you can. So I'm pinning this edge, so here's the edge of the skirt, and this is the edge of the top. So I'm pinning those to make sure that they match up. This is why I like to serge both edges, just to make sure that there's no random threads kind of all over the place. So it kind of keeps it looking all nice and professional. So just start pinning all around. Okay, and now I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew around this edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to use a stitch length of 3, so kind of a tighter stitch length. Now I'm going to my trusty old plastic bin here, and I'm going to grab the appropriate size, which is 3 to 6 months. I got this from Mountain Street Arts, and I did a custom order, just so you guys know, and they're on Etsy. So I'm going to make sure it's facing the right way. So it should be facing this way, so the skirt and the top should be going upwards. Double checking the size. 3 to 6 months. Just tucking it right in there. I usually have one for my business as well, so they know where they got it from, but I ran out and I probably should order more. So I'll do that soon. Okay, now I'm gonna stitch this down, and this is our last step. After this, it'll all be done. Now I'll show you the final product. So I go over it a few times just to make sure it's nice and secure. Use my cutting. Try pulling on it. It's not coming out, so there's the size tag. And I'll pull it all inside out. And oh, I forgot you have to add the snaps, of course. Oh, this is adorable. All right, so now I'm going to work on adding my snaps, and I'll show you how you use a hand press versus a snap press. Okay, now to prep the dress for adding the snaps. So I use this little Cricut pointy tool because I have a Cricut and that's what I find works best. So what you're gonna do is, again, you're gonna wanna make sure that there's a 1-inch overlap. And they're gonna park 3 holes or 2 holes depending on how big the project is. I might actually do 2 holes because this is a very tiny dress. So I'm gonna poke a hole through both layers at the top. So there it is. And then one kind of towards the bottom. And that one's not lined up perfectly, so. Then there's that. Yeah, so like I said, I'm only going to use 2 snaps for this project because it is fairly small. And I also use white snaps, so I'm going to get my snaps all prepared here. Okay. So here's the hand press. So what I'm going to do is you use the pointy one. Put it through the hole, making sure, so this is the outside, so this is facing towards out, but if it was in the inside one, it would be facing this way, so it would snap. Then I'm going to grab one of these. So I get all my snaps from Etsy. I'll link this all below, and then you just press it. And pull it out, and there's a snap. Now I'm gonna do the same for the other side. So again, pushing it through. I honestly use both because I don't want to have to change my different settings on my snap press to accommodate. So again, pushing it through, and now you're gonna want the flat side to be where this orange part is. So you line it up. Give it a good press. And then there it is. So there are 2 snaps that we have prepared. And now let's go use the snap press, which I actually use on my kitchen counter because it's nice and sturdy, and I use plastic tables, so I don't want to mess up anything with that. So yeah, let's go and I'll show you how to use the snap press. It's basically the same process, except it's more of a sturdy press and it won't strain your hands as much. All right, so here's my cam snap press. It works like a charm. So again, when you're on the inside, you want the flat part to be showing and the inside. So here's the inside, so I'm going to push it through the hole. Because you want the snap parts to match up, so that's why we're doing what we do right now. And then put the flat side on the flat side, and then you just press. Pop it out. Now again, I usually use about 3 snaps when it comes to these dresses. However, this side is super, super tiny, so this size, I mean not this side, this size is really tiny, so I felt like we only really needed 2 snaps. Again, flat side down. And press. Oh. Press. Put a whole body weight into it. Okay, and now I usually do the snap test, which I put the snaps through, and I click it 3 times. So that one's all good to go. And that one's good to go. So now let's look at the finished product. All right, so here is our final product. Look how cute and tiny and just beautiful it is. So there's the pattern. So you can see it up close, and there are the pleats that we made, and then the nice finished edge. So this is a super cute summer dress and also for spring. There are the snaps that we added. I would typically add 3, but I just think that's kind of too much for this little size. And there's the back. Then you can open up the snaps to easily take it on and take it off. So I think this is a super cute practical dress. It's a really great dress to sell. So I haven't mentioned this yet, but last summer is, I would say like kind of like last late spring is when I first started posting my dresses, and they sold okay, and then I sold about 10 in the summer, which is pretty good, I would think. And then this month alone, in January, in the cold, the nastiness, like midwinter, I think I sold about 5 of these dresses, so they're definitely becoming more popular. I really want to make more of these. I have a ton of new fabric that I want to make for dresses, so check that out for future videos. So yeah, this is a super cute practical dress, really beginner friendly. Again, serger is totally optional. You can totally just use a sewing machine. However, I'm kind of OCD and I like to make sure all of my edges are, you know, nicely seamed, that there's no stray threads anywhere. So again, here's the dress, super cute. And let me actually show you something else that I made as well. So I actually made this skirt. It's a 3-layered skirt, so there's 1, 2, 3. And surprise inside is that they're actually shorts. So I made this as an option for my Etsy shop, and it's getting tons of views so far. And then there's the inside. You can see it's like a skirt situation, but this is a really cute party skirt. So let me know if you want to see me do a tutorial on this. It was quite the beast to make, to be honest with you. The dress took not as long. This probably took like 3 times as long as the dress took, but that's because there's so many like layers and so much fabric. But it's super cute. It's got a nice stretchy waistband. So let me know if you want to see me make this in future tutorials. And as I mentioned before, for this dress, I did get permission from the designer to share with you how to make it. And yeah, so the pattern pieces are super simple. It includes what sizes that are offered. So again, the smallest size you can do is 1 to 3 months. This is 3 to 6 months. And then the largest that you can do is 9 to 12 months. So it's very universal. I really like to make them for everyday dresses. I think this is probably an everyday dress because 3 to 6 months, unless it's like a 6-month birthday thing, mid-birthday, half birthday, I guess. You know, I'm assuming that this one is just kind of like for an everyday cute spring dress. They're really great for birthday dresses. So that candy fabric that I showed you guys, I think I mentioned this in so many videos, is one of my most popular dresses that I sell right now. So definitely party dresses is a really big thing, especially if they don't want it to be super personalized and if they want to be able to use it again. So if they do wear it for a birthday, then they can wear it for the spring, for the summer, and even just like an overall everyday dress. It's super cute, super practical, especially with that open back. That's really what drew me to this pattern, because if you guys have kids, you know how squirmy and, you know, just sometimes they don't want to get dressed. So having something with an easy snap closure rather than a zipper, I think it'll, you know, make it easy access in order to kind of put clothes on kids. So yeah, so I really wanted to show you guys this tutorial because I want you guys to know that I don't only embroider, but I also sew. That's one of my big passions right now. And as I mentioned before, I made this skirt the other day, never made it before. I don't think they have a YouTube tutorial for it. So I'm definitely feeling like my skills are expanding, especially when it came to making this. This took hours for me to make, but I think it probably took a couple hours for me to make the dress for the first time versus about half an hour that it takes me now. So I'm super happy that I'm expanding my skills, and I really want to share with you guys how to make all these things, because obviously you all have a mutual interest as well. So that's kind of why I wanted to share this tutorial with you guys. Hopefully you can offer it in your Etsy shops as well. And again, super beginner friendly. This was my first ever project that I made on my serger. So again, it's for Made by Me patterns. It's a basic dress, so I highly recommend that you guys check it out. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, give it a thumbs up and let me know if you want to see me making the skirt and doing the tutorial, because I think it's super, super cute. Look how fluffy it is. I mean, oh, I love it. So let me know if you want to see any more tutorials from me, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, because as I mentioned before, I don't only do embroidery, but I also do sewing, I do crochet, I do knitting. Pretty much anything crafty is totally up my aisle, and I'd love to try new things too. So if there's something that you want me to try out, please let me know. So yeah, again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and hope to see you guys soon. Bye.